Instagram, it is time. Good morning, BigMouthBen, your motivational alarm clock. Rise and shine. I come out here on Auburn Avenue to wake y'all up to something positive. Wake you up. Yesterday we did all is well, right? That was my phrase for yesterday. I got a good one for today. The one for today, get out of there. Get out of there. You know what I mean when I say get out of there? Sometimes we get in our feelings, start feeling a certain type of way, and we do crazy stuff. Get out of there. When you feel yourself going through that, tell yourself, get out of there. Sometimes we go up in our head doing all that old extra thinking, trying to figure out this and that and the other, and probably thinking the wrong way. Get out of there. Get out of there. Get out your feelings. Get out your head sometimes. Stay focused, man. For real. Everybody was created to do something great. Be great. Live your dreams and stop playing. I love y'all. BigMouthBen, your motivation anytime.
Came from nothing. Now I got some. Got a store in the hood. Got love for my people and it keep me going. Came from nothing. Now I got some. Got a store in the hood. Got love for my people and it keep me going. Pushing 50, but I sound like I'm 20. Get my weight up, I used to be skinny, but Craig left Jenny, and I ain't going back. Call it a fact. I be on the block like a light in this world to cover the slack. Came from nothing, a lot of people out here seen it with their own eyes. Got love for the kids like Denzel Washington, man on fire. I was meant for this, I was born to live my purpose out. Got a heart for the love, so all I kick is that perfect talk. If you know me, you know what I mean when I say live your dreams, stop playing. You got a chance to come up in this world, just stick to the plan. The fact that they made it through the storm, they love it. Lost it all, got it back, came from nothing. Came from nothing. Now I got some.
I am Benjamin BigMouthBen Graham. I'm in front of BigMouthBen convenience store on Auburn Avenue. Things happen for a reason. I was raised with a spiritual background as well as a entrepreneurial background. You know, I can remember being in the gas station at age 6, and back then they had these Coke bottles, glass Coke bottles that you could turn in, and you would get a deposit back for them, maybe 10 cents. I think it's 5 or 10 cents. Well, I observed that while I was in the gas station with my granddad, and my eyes got that big. I said, you gave him money for an empty bottle? And the cashier said, yes. I said, I know where a lot of those bottles are. So I ran back home and I grabbed my red wagon and I went around, I collected bottles out of the neighbor's yards, my yard, and I went back and I made $2. So while the kids were playing and I was pulling my wagon around collecting bottles, So I was always an entrepreneur and I grew up in the church.
My name is Robert Horn. I'm with the Thankful Missionary Baptist Church, 830 West College Avenue in Decatur, Georgia. When you say Big Mouth, that means a whole lot. That includes the entire neighborhood, the entire community. I was at the church across the street for 12 long years, and Ben would come in and eat with us. We served meals on every Monday and Wednesday. Ben would come in and have a meal, you know, and he'd leave, and I think somebody gave him a bicycle. And by him getting a bicycle, he got a bag of potato chips and a soda and a bottle of water, and that accumulated, you know. And that accumulated into BigMouthBen's on Auburn Avenue here.
I was riding down Auburn and I got up here on the other end and there was a for rent sign in the window. And I looked through the window and it was like a vision. I saw a counter going across the back. I saw some coolers on the right and I saw some shelves on the left and shelves in the middle. And I decided I called Tanya and I said, listen, there's a for rent sign down here on the end. I wonder how much they want for rent. I know everything at watch, paper clip, my necklace.
You really don't know where everything is at. My name is Tanya Graham. I am originally from Georgia. He called me when he noticed that there was a for lease or for rent sign on the building, and he told me that he saw this place. It was not too big, not too small, just right for what we, you know, what we can do. And so he told me his vision of what he saw the store looking like and what it would take to kind of get it started.
I was a little hesitant because I was on the bike, and I said, well, maybe I can just keep working off the bike. I don't have to pay rent and all that. But the next level was definitely the store. And Tanya said, let's go for it.
When he told me where it was, I was like, we can't let that go. Because when he said it was right here, a block away from the Martin Luther King Center, I was like, you don't get this opportunity too often. You don't let that go.
And so we called Mrs. Robinson, and she sent a broker out to meet with us. We looked at the space and filled the application out. And Mrs. Robinson she says, I got a good feeling about you too, and she decided to give us a chance. And so we opened the store May of 2014.
This is an area that's growing. I mean, it's been through some things, but there's a lot of businesses that's wanting to make changes and come into this area, so it's a big deal. It's a big deal to be able to be here and continue to be here going on 3 years.
The store is an outreach store. Free bottled water for the homeless or anyone in need that can't afford water. They can come here and get free water. We have socks. We go out to West End and we'll buy the 30 pair of socks for $10. They're like earregs or overruns or whatever, but we'll buy them at that discounted price and we'll give them away. The neighborhood really loves what we're doing, and it runs pretty smoothly. There's challenges at times. You have to balance running a business with outreach. Sometimes people may want to sleep or it might be not as presentable as you need to be in a business, and you have to, hey, how you doing? All right, but it's okay. But we just keep going.
Some days, as busy as we are, or as jam-packed as our schedule is, so people need outlets sometimes, and so having been there and having them see someone who's came from their situation is major. So many people just need people to see as an example and let them know that it can be done.
Ben is a perfect example of what Dr. King was speaking about. We are all equal. And all I need is a chance. I don't need you to give me anything. Just give me an opportunity to present myself. And that's what Ben did. He presented himself, and we see the outcome. Again, I say.
Born originally in North Carolina, Hamlet, North Carolina. Little small town, one red light. My mom at the time was attending Clark University, and she wanted to continue her education after I was born, so she allowed my grandmother to raise me, or to be raised by my grandmother in North Carolina. Grandma was the church pianist. She was on this board, that board. I think I was in church 5 times a week with Grandma. That's how my love of music came about. I played the drums in church. At the age of 6, I would play the drum while the people in the church shouted. I would play the drums, and so I think music is something I was always drawn to. So my mom stayed here in Atlanta while I was raised in North Carolina, up until the age of 7. My grandmother had a heart attack, and I came back to live with Mom in Atlanta. Mom did the best she could. Well, our family didn't have a complete family. There was not a dad or father around. So Mom raised us by herself, and it was me, and I had 2 younger brothers, so it was us 3 with Mom, and her brother would, watch us and raise us as well. Mom was strict. Mom was, even though it was her by herself, she fulfilled both roles. If we got C's, we were in trouble. Anything below a B was, we couldn't go outside but 30 minutes a day. If we got C's on our report card, we were in trouble. And so because of that, I was often on the roll, or if I wasn't, I better explain to her why I wasn't. And I was always figuring out ways to do things. I think I would get in trouble in school for selling candy. I would go and bring candy to school to sell. I even was offering to change people's report card. I was always this entrepreneur trying to come up with the next scheme or the next thing. I was this kid that But I was fascinated with science. I was always fascinated with creating things and music. I discovered Auburn Avenue in my high school years. I got my driver's license and got my first car, and I wandered downtown. A lot of stuff has been torn down since my years of driving down here with my first driver's license, or my first time having a car. Like if you look across here, there were houses on this one way. Those steps that were going to the house are still here. The houses that were built right here, they still have I would park right here in the church's parking lot at 11:30 and sit there until 1:30, 2 o'clock. It was just like watching a movie. And I would sit down there and some of the pimps would come and say, "You want something to eat?" And then they said, "Y'all better not mess with him." I was raised in the church early, and I was pretty much kept in the house by mom. So, you know, when I got 16, I was able to drive. I was able to go places that mom hadn't showed me. I saw that I was developing risky behavior. You've got this guy that knows what to do, knows the right way, was taught the right way, but there's something self-destructive brewing. You know, I always wonder, what is it about? Why do I self-destruct? But what it was is these childhood traumas that remain untreated. Something happened to me in my childhood. When I was searching for bottles, I wandered into the woods, and I wandered into on a property of another man that said I was trespassing. Yeah. And I tried to leave. I said, "I'm sorry, I'm 6 years old." And I apologized and tried to leave, but he wouldn't let me. And he forced me to go even deeper in the woods, and that resulted in, he said if I didn't do what he said, he would kill me. And so as a result, I was molested at the age of 6. And I put it down inside and kept it moving. Along with that trauma, there was the abuse from family members as I came to Atlanta, you know, just their way of raising you. They feel like if you're not man enough, you need to toughen up, and their idea of toughen up was locking you in a room with porn or making you fight people and things like that. There were other traumas that kind of started to develop later on. I began to observe people, the people that were part of the street, and a lot of them looked so sad. It looks like the life had nothing to offer, and so I didn't want to be like that. I said I didn't want that. I said I don't seem like there's no future here. So then I started to think about what would I do after high school? You know, I was enjoying the streets, but then there was a part of me saying, you know, you got to do something with your life. I was going into the Air Force. I did real well on the ASVAB, and the night before, I was going to go down for my checkup and to sign up for 4 years. I got the acceptance letter that Friday, from the University of Georgia. So my mom and I decided that it would be better if I went to college. And so I went off to college instead of going into the Air Force. At the University of Georgia, I met Tanya Zachary at the time.
University of Georgia is where I met Ben, BigMouthBen, who is my husband. I was born in Rome, Georgia, but started my growth off in Kingston, Georgia, which is a small town in North Georgia. I was there for maybe about 2 years, and my family, along with my mom and my brother, we moved to Rochester, New York, where we spent probably about 10 to 11 years before we moved back to Georgia again. So I ended up back in Georgia, going to middle school and high school in Marietta, Georgia. I left the University of Georgia after 2 years to actually be able to work. In UGA's Athens, it's a little bit smaller town. You're not able to necessarily get around as much without a car. So I came back to Georgia State University, where I was working as a security guard on campus, and I eventually graduated from Georgia State University with a degree in biology and a minor in chemistry. So I've actually been working in the biopharmaceutical industry for, quite a bit, probably over 20 years. We actually met at one of the residence halls. It's called Crestwell, and we were just hanging out. It's just one of those things, you know, you're out of class and you're hanging out, and we were with a couple of different other people, and we were introduced. And so we started kind of dating off and on. You know how it is when you're younger. He was the party guy, and here I was, the little quiet girl. I'm more reserved. Yeah, I'm more reserved, and he was that guy that was everywhere all the time. You know, everyone knows him kind of thing. But something about our personalities, something about, I guess our spirit still, it clicked.
BigMouthBen, 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 BigMouthBen.
In college at the University of Georgia, I was known as Benji K. I was a DJ and also a rapper.
He was a hard worker, very hard worker, and he was dedicated to his music, very dedicated, very creative. He always walked around with this notepad where he was writing music in consistently, and that's one of the things I remember. He always had that notepad, and he was always writing.
I would get off and I would go and I would make flyers. I would make posters. I have 11 by 17 copies. And by the time the dorm was asleep, but at 2:30 in the morning, I was going into the dorm and putting these on the lobby, down in the lobby floor. I was putting them on telephone poles at the intersection. And so by the time the students woke up, they just saw Benji K. You know, like I had this #1 promoter or you know, PR person, and it was all me. I was an icon in Athens, you know, record out, records in stores, and bumper stickers on cars, t-shirts, you know, the single was Live the Dream.
One of my mistakes I made started at the end of college. I had everything going on with the music, so I decided that I would quit school. I had 4 quarters to go for a degree. So I said, you know what, I'm gonna quit school. I'm rapping, everybody knows me, I have a song on the radio, I'm gonna come to Atlanta and blow up as a rapper. I'm gonna quit college and become a famous rapper. So I did it.
I want success in my life, so I'ma act like it. And if you want success, you better act like it. I really want success, so I act like it. I'm trying to see $1 million, so I act like it. I know I gotta make it, so I act like it. Act like it. Act like it. If you really want success, you better act like it.
Head down to Adversity University Studios. Matt Graham, very talented artist, very creative. What is BigMouthBen's purpose in music? Well, #1, I love music. Matt, what's up, buddy? No. Hey, what's going on, man?
I'm all about the positive. I'm all about the positive. I'm all about the positive.
That's for one of my homies, China. My name is Matt Graham. I'm a singer, songwriter, engineer. Pretty much I do music.
Drugs ain't got the best of me, I don't want no more. I thought that it'd be fun, it ain't fun no more.
What I wanted to do was build my own studio, so went through a lot of stuff. That's why my brand is Adversity University. All the struggles we went through is dealing with the industry. But what I wanted to do for myself was build my own studio and start off my own brand. So right now we're in my studio, pretty much from scratch. Right. And this is where the magic happens. This is a long story with BigMouthBen. I remember I was riding around in Atlanta by West End area, and I saw him riding his bike. And he had like a little speaker on his bike, and he was like, cuz man, listen to this song I got. And he played the song, and I was like, man, that's kind of dope. And we talked about it. We was like, man, we need to get in the studio. And ever since then, we've been in the studio.
old still rapping. I used to be strung out on that blow, so I ain't about this rap. Got a store in the hood and that be good enough. Take my profits every day and then I put them up. Dollar saved is a dollar earned. And if you walk around here broke, that mean you never learn. I can try to teach you, but you gotta listen. When it come to life, you better have a mission. Set out for what you want, don't let it slip away. Stop treating people like they owe you, it's not a giveaway. You got goals, you got... Oh, you
Remember the
Okay. Oh, I got it. Okay, you gonna drop it?
Yeah, I'm gonna drop it.
All right, here we go.
As I said in my song, 48 years old, still rapping. And a lot of times it's hard for me to get over that because I'm always conscious. I'm saying, you know, a lot of the people saying that, man, 48 years old and he's, you know, rapping. You know, what is he doing? But the thing is, I have something to say, and who says that rap has to have a certain age limit? You know, music doesn't, you know. Motivation definitely doesn't. And I label myself a motivational entertainer. That kind of cleans up the image a little bit rather than a 48-year-old rapper.
With his whole movement with being a motivational entertainer, nobody's doing that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, so, and just to see, like, you know, he's older and he's rapping. So, you know, some people probably look at that like, what is he doing rapping? And the fact that he doing that and he don't care, he doing what he love, can't nothing stop you when you're doing what you love.
I think a lot of us now are just jumping on the bandwagon of what we think is on and popping because we hear it on the radio so many times a day. So everybody is trapping now and everybody's, you know, treating the girls like whatever, you know, because that's what they hear a lot. I want to pioneer what I call hope hop. You know, another form of hip hop that inspires. I said in my song, 48 years old, still rapping. I used to be strung out on that blow, so I ain't about that trapping. And, you know, I say stuff like that because I really want people to, and I'm respected for my lane. See, the average person that's in the trap or the average person that wants to hear you talk about trap, they know why BigMouthBen don't talk about trap. Well, BigMouthBen used to be strung out. So BigMouthBen won't talk about selling drugs. He won't talk about getting high because he's recovered from that, and it made his life a living hell.
He's more motivational. So, you know, of course he have catchy beats and good melodies, but he more of motivational. He talk about reality, things he experienced, and you can tell he wants to uplift people, you know, just from his story, coming from addiction to changing his life. Like, I saw him go from being addicted to something to being addicted to this, creating. Not even just music, just everything he do. Like, he went around Atlanta selling snacks and riding a bike, and now he got a store. I mean, that's inspiration right there.
Do I expect to you know, to be on the radio tomorrow or next day? Most likely probably won't. You know, not just yet. My goal is just to encourage artists or to sway it a little bit, to let people dig deeper. You can freestyle trap, you know. You know, I'm in the hood, I got a Uzi and I got it on the dash, I know. But it takes a little bit more creativity to dig a little deeper. You know, people are hurting in different ways. Write about it. You know, I was telling the guy the other day, write about that. Write about what you pain. Write about how you felt when mom did this and all that. Because guess what? It's a million other people that felt the same way you felt. But instead of just saying, you know, that's why I don't F with her because this and that, don't talk about where that pain came from. I guarantee a million other people going to feel where you came from. And then they're going to still be your fan. But my question is, who would be bold enough to just say, I'm going to be me?
This is just the beginning for him, so I see it. I definitely see a future. And I see it catching on. I don't even think about the age or nothing. Just the fact that he believes and how passionate he is about it. Hey, the sky's the limit.
Yeah, okay, I'm ready.
Motivation on the trap.
Once we left UGA, that was it. Yeah. I think that we probably thought that we would probably call each other or see each other somewhere along the way. But I think we both just kind of just went our ways and started our different lives.
I was leaving, I was on the front page of the Red and Black, and it said, Benji K is heading for Atlanta. You know, he opened up a De La Soul. Now he's taking his career to Atlanta to start his record label. And it was a very nice article. I came back home to Atlanta from Athens, Georgia, University of Georgia. And I didn't make it. I tried, 3 months I was trying to get into the music and do things, and it just didn't work. go back to work. I was always doing things. As I look back over my life, I would always jump into something. I would never just build a solid foundation. You know, I had just got hired permanently for the Cobb County to work in the tax assessor's office. I started my mail order business while I was working at the Cobb County, and once I got wind of the business, I was like, I'm gonna go run my business and become a millionaire and all that good stuff. I moved out to Buckhead. A wealthy lifestyle. We didn't go online with our business. We stayed in the mail, and our customers were going online. And so I was going out of business. So I'm about to lose my wealthy status. I was going to have to move out of Buckhead. So at the time, I was still dibbling dabbling in music, but one of my music buddies was a big-time drug dealer in Decatur. I had a very arrogant attitude about people that did drugs or people that sold drugs. But now I got desperate, and now I'm this hustler's mindset. I'm saying, well, maybe I can do this. I told my friend, I said, man, teach me how to sell drugs. This was the guy I was working with in music. He didn't want to. It took a week to talk him into it. He was saying, you went to school, you're too smart for this. This is not you don't want to do this. And gave me every opportunity not to, but I kept bugging him, and finally he got in. And when he did, I became one of the fastest sellers or the biggest sellers because I was in Buckhead and I was selling drugs literally selling drugs to the wealthy. I call it the deal with the devil. Now you can see who's more in control now. This is the self-destructive Ben. Now I've got money coming in more than I can count. And so now I'm invincible. And now, now I'm drinking. I bought VIPs at every club so I can just go in and I'm living the life. I was busted in 3 months. I started selling. 3 months later, I was busted. They took me to jail. They took all my money, and there was no bond for me. So I remained in jail for a few months behind that.
How old were you at this time?
23. A year later, through the spiritual void, that's how I was raised up spiritually. I always had this void. I never felt good about what I was doing, so I would drink, spend time at the clubs, and just try to numb myself to what was going on. I was never meant to do it, and so I couldn't deal with the conviction. And unfortunately, after that year of that feeling, I was drinking, but a year later, I decided to try it. I decided to take a hit of crack. And when I did, it hit me like a brick. When I first hit it, I had this rush. And it was like I discovered something. I was like, what is this? And I took another hit, and I smoked all that night. The next day I felt guilty. I felt like ashamed. I felt like everybody knew what I had done. And so I managed to play it off and go about that day. So I would leave it alone for another week or so, but every week I would go back to it. And then it would be every other day, and eventually it became every day, all day. I got to the point where the guy that had taught me the game suspected that I was using the drugs. So he would not front me anymore the drugs, and even though we were best friends, we had dreams in the music together, he didn't want nothing to do with me. So here's these relationships being destroyed. I was still trying to hustle. I would go out to Buckhead, and people that wanted to buy drugs, they would take me downtown and I would go get it for them and things like that. And one day I was at the stoplight and I watched my mom walk across the street. She was a budget analyst at Georgia Tech. So she was on a lunch break and she walked across the street. And she looked at me and she started crying. And I'll never forget that look on her face. She said, "Get out of the car, I'm gonna take you home." When I got into the drug business, I didn't hang around the family. I didn't want them to know what I was doing. So they saw me leave as a successful businessman that the whole family was proud of. That was gonna be the first millionaire in the family and that was gonna save the whole family. Now I was coming home a crack addict. a junkie. And I was coming home at 130 pounds. When I left at 200 pounds in a suit and tie. My mom had set a room up in the house for me, which was her office. So she put a bed in there and said you can stay there. So I ate and slept for a couple of weeks. I would started back to working out, got my weight up a little bit, and Mom took me to go buy some shirts and ties, and I was gonna go back job hunting. I did good for a few months, and then all of a sudden I got this feeling, and I went back out and I relapsed. And this all would go on for years. I would keep it together for a few months, and then I would, just relapse. And finally, my mom was tired of that cycle. I was tired of letting them down, so I moved in with some more people, and we stayed together, and we all smoked, and we all tried to, just survive. So I got to the point I couldn't work. I worked at a day labor, and so I finally found a job on the back of a garbage truck. I was on the back of the garbage truck one day, and the guy was backing back into a cul-de-sac. There were 3 dump trucks, but he only saw 2. And he angled towards the 3rd one. And I'm riding on the back, and he's moving too fast for me to jump off, so I'm yelling for him to stop. I saw that he was coming towards the wall of the dump truck, and he wasn't gonna stop. And so I just kind of embraced, and he collided with the dump truck, and I was pinned between. And I heard my bones crush. He crushed my pelvis. I felt the bones crush, I heard them. It sounded like stepping on twigs while you're walking through the woods. And all my bowel was released, and I just passed out. I was screaming, there was so much pain. I was screaming. I could hear the siren of the ambulance coming. People were all crowded around, staring at me. So they took me to the hospital. And they said, all we can do is show you how to get in a wheelchair. I was in intensive care for a few months. And the only thing connecting the top part of my body was spinal cord. The top and bottom was the spinal cord. The other bones had been crushed. Finally, I was transferred over to Lawrenceville. I'll never forget that name. Dr. Mary Jo Albert performed surgery and put a rod, and placed a rod in my back, connected my legs again, giving me some sort of stability. So I'm in a hospital bed, I got the Cadillac brochures, and I'm watching HGTV. And I said, you know what, I finally got a chance in my new life. I'm sitting there, I'm not on drugs, besides the morphine they had to give me for the pain, but I wasn't on drugs anymore. So I sat in the hospital. I was in hospital for months. Through determination, healing, grace of God, whatever you want to call it, I started to heal. It took another year, and I started to get my strength back. I started to use the wheelchair as a walker. So got my strength back. I'm back walking. A few months clean, about a year clean actually, close to a year, because of the accident and the rehabilitation. So now the entrepreneur spirit is kicking in. I'm ready to make some money. I took that, and through some social services, I was able to get an apartment because of the accident and and things of that sort. So I have an apartment, and I take that wheelchair and I turn it into a snack cart. I took a cooler, I placed the cooler in the wheelchair, and I took some chips and put them on top of the wheelchair. And I started walking around downtown Atlanta selling my snacks. I'm walking around and I'm selling my snacks on Auburn. There was I would go to the Peacock when they let out around 2:30, 3 in the morning, sell my snacks. And so finally, one of the people on the street said, there's some people in apartments on 4th Street that want to buy some snacks. They came up to the wheelchair, they bought everything I had, I sold out. And I said, wow, I went back and bought some more stuff. So, but there was a lot of activity with crack going on down there, a lot of crack houses, a lot of people smoking. So, sooner or later, I ended up in one of the apartments smoking crack. It was like the first time I did. I felt bad. I snapped out of it. I went back to my apartment, and You know, I would leave it alone, and the next week I would go back down to these apartments on 4th Street. That became more of my routine. And finally, I was back into full-fledged addiction. I was smoking every day, all day. I was pushing a wheelchair around to make $4 to go buy a rock, you know, buy a hit of crack. My rent was only $25 a month, and I still managed to get evicted. After I got evicted, I started sleeping in the crack houses and people houses that smoke crack, and just stuck down in these apartments on 4th Street for another year or so. I designed a bike to get around faster. I came up with this idea that if I could put my snacks on the bike, I can get around faster. I did that, but I'm still struggling with addiction. And finally, Georgia State bought the property and decided to tear the apartments down, to move everybody out and tear those apartments down. So it was at that point, now I had nowhere to go. My first night under the bridge, I knew the apartments, I had to be out of there. They were going to tear them down. So I took 2 sofa cushions and I brought them up to this bridge. And I knew people were sleeping under the bridge. So there was a lady that I knew pretty much was always here. So she was there, and I said, you know, where can I lay my cushions where I won't be in anybody's way? And she said, well, just find your space. Everybody has a couple parking spaces distance between each other. And so I looked around, I said, you know, I don't want to be up there because I don't want people to see me. I don't want my family to see me. I didn't want to be, I was embarrassed to be sleeping under a bridge. But so my first night, I went up to this column here. It's probably about the 4th column back. I leaned my bike up against the column. I had my bike, and I laid the cushions down. I had a cover, and so I said to myself, I said, you know, I'm not gonna live like this. Tomorrow morning, I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna go get help. I'm gonna go somewhere, I'm gonna get help. I'm not gonna be under a bridge. But the next day, I woke up and I said, you know what? This wasn't so bad. I didn't die. Nobody laughed at me. Nobody even cared. Nobody even saw me. I said, I can do this. I said, I'm okay. And so the next few years would go by with me just simply riding around on my bike, selling snacks. And at the end of whatever day, morning, or whenever I couldn't go no more, I'd just bring my bike, lean it up against the column, and set my cushions up and go to sleep. It brings back memories, you know. Sometimes I can walk here, we'll pass here, I'll come over here and look and get emotional. It was Thanksgiving, and Mimi was bringing me a plate, you know, and I told her I was staying with somebody, and she's like, I'll bring the plate. I'll bring the plate to wherever you stand. And I was like, no, I'll come and get it. And I met her in the fire station parking lot and brought it back over here and sat down and ate. But I didn't want her to know that I was where I was.
No, I never knew that.
Yeah, I just thought about that when I was looking at the fire station.
I never knew that.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of embarrassing moments with addiction.
Just visualizing. Can't imagine.
It just seems so quiet now.
I know. And so many people ride by here and never know what happens here.
The clubs would be packed, and I would go sell my snacks and buy my drugs and come back up here and sit here and cover myself in a blanket, you know. And that's how I lived. I had tried so many times to get off crack that it beat me up so much that I just decided I'm just gonna survive. And the addiction became so bad that when you woke up, you had to have what they call is a wake up. A lot of people were saying, you know, man, well, whether now, if they're just waking up now, if a person gets off the ground or gets out of the chairs, you know, while we sitting here doing the interview with my wife, I was sitting on the bench, and I became a little emotional because I used to lay on these benches, and I sat down there and I was like, man, You know, and I was just sitting waiting on the interview, and I was like, man, I used to sleep here. This between here, by the time you tried, you try to get in here, and you're like, and then you still got this. So sometimes you can be like, and try to sleep like that, but then your head is like,
Too small.
no, that's the problem with me. I'm too yeah. And then I tried this way. I tried this one time. This didn't work. And I was scared of this because I'm like, what if I had to get up real fast? Somebody started beating on me. I can't do nothing but take the beat. But when you've been up 2 or 3 days, you don't care.
Did you know they build those benches that way intentionally to prevent homeless people from sleeping on them?
Wow, I didn't even know that.
You didn't know that? Yeah.
I think I heard that before.
Yeah.
I actually hadn't thought about it, but
Wow.
yeah, because really, what would be the purpose?
It was people still managed to do it.
Oh yeah.
When you woke up, you had, you know, the only thing on your mind was, I need a hit. I need a hit. I can't. You don't have the strength to walk. You don't feel like doing anything. You just need that hit. And once you get that hit, you feel normal. Then you feel like, now I can go work, or now I can go to work. Now I can do this, and so that became my routine. And then there were so many conversations. There were so many times I took my straight shooter and threw it up against the wall, flushed it, you know, did whatever. You know, this was the last hit. This was, you know, I must have broken over 500 straight shooters in my life. Every few months I was getting busted. I was getting pulled over for no light on the bike, and they searched me, and I would have crack on me, and I would go to jail. You know, so I had about 3 cases pending. So I went before the judge, and I'm still under the bridge when all this is going on. So I went before the judge, and they wanted to send me to prison for 10 years. And it was at that point I said, you know what, maybe that'll help me to sober up. So I said, okay, Your Honor, when do you want me to report? If I take this time, when do I need to report to go to prison? And so, no, you don't have to report, we're taking you now. I was like, I ain't ready to go to prison now. I wanted one more hit. And so I went, I told him I had a drug problem, which I did. And I started saying, well, wait a minute, can you do something about my drug problem? And then the judge mandated that I go to Metro Day Reporting Center. I was supposed to show up at the beginning of January. And I think the night before I was about to show up, I was still smoking, getting high, and so I got high all night. And so it was an hour before time to report, and I said, you know what? I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna run. You know, they're gonna have to find me. I knew they'd take a warrant out, but I said it may be years before they find me. So sure enough, they took the warrant out, and I kept going. But for some reason, things started to change. It wasn't fun anymore. I wasn't getting high as I thought I was. I just got tired of running. I just got tired of this lifestyle, you know, so I call this a spiritual awakening. One day I was sitting there on the cushion, and it was like I had a conversation with God. I said, it's got to be more to life than this. It's got to be more to life than this. I mean, all the UGA, the training, the talents, the mind, the businesses. I know life was meant to be better for me than this. And I thought I was just talking to myself. But actually it was like God just chimed in. It was like, it is. And if it was a movie where you could just do special effects, you would see this flame just become a human form and sit down next to you. It was like he was sitting, he said it is. He says, I promise to love you anywhere you want to be. You want to go to prison, I'll love you there. You want to be under this bridge, I'll love you there. But it's up to you where you want to be loved. And after that thought came to me, there felt like there was a lift in my spirit. My attitude went from a stubborn addiction to stubborn curiosity. Like, I wonder what would happen, what would happen in life if I was to move forward without doing any more drugs. Well, it was easier said than done. For some reason, and it happens a lot on the street, a lot of times when you say you're gonna stop, that's when somebody will come and just give you some free. And it just so happened I was riding my bike, and I rode and I turned the corner and found a whole sack full of drugs. Just found it. Somebody had dropped it getting out of their car the night before. And I looked around and I didn't see anybody. So I picked them up. And all of a sudden my attitude to get off drugs became my attitude like, now I'm finally about to have a party. I tell people, when you make this commitment to change, you never know how it's gonna come, but it's gonna come. So I went over to the store to work. I come out, I mopped the floor, I'm waiting on the floor to dry. I'm thinking about my big party I'm gonna have once I finish there. I didn't even have to go there because I had enough stuff, you know, but I still wanted to go and to keep that job. And so I'm waiting for the floor to dry. Somebody calls me across the street to give me something to eat. So I crossed the street, which was not at the intersection, I jaywalked. So a police speeds up. He says, come here, you know. And I said, what? He says, give me your ID. He says, why did you cross that street? I said, he was giving me something to eat. I'm working. I work here. You know, I'm calm. But he said, let me have your ID. And he walks back to the car. And it was at that moment I figured, I said, I wonder did those people take a warrant out on me for not going? And sure enough, he jumps out the car. He comes back to me, says, put your hand on the car. And it was at that point that the handcuffs, when I was in handcuffs, I was sitting in the back of that car. I said, well, I guess I said I was ready, Lord, so let's go. And it was at that point that everything started to turn around. April 3rd, I was 2012, I was transported to Metro Day Reporting Center, shackled and everything, and on a sheriff van, and we unloaded. I went there, even when I showed up, I don't even think I had shoes. I had on mismatched shoes, the shoes that I was arrested in. And so the counselor there at the program tried to find me some shoes, and I had no ID. All this stuff was I was just starting from scratch, but I was ready. The program had several classes that I was involved with: early recovery skills, cognitive therapy, which was motivation for change, and I started to change. I started to begin to think differently. You know, some of the organizations in Atlanta helped me with housing and other resources while going through the program. Now I want to put the bike back together while I'm sober. I'm living at the Gateway Center, and now this entrepreneur guy's coming back out. So the same bike that I had riding around selling my snacks, I decided to make the bike, cover the bike in yellow duct tape. Okay. And the reason I chose yellow was because I wanted yellow to represent the sunshine. I saw and I believed that I was going to remain sober, and I wanted everybody else to know that, you know, there's hope. I was really starting to make some progress. And before you know it, I'm a year clean, and I finished the program, and I was able to speak at the graduation. Now at this time, my mom had seen so many attempts before. You know, I was into a 6-month program. 1 week out the program, I'm high again. 3-month program, I'm out again and I'm high. But this time, I called Mom and said, Mom, they want me to speak at the graduation. They said I was the most improved client that they've seen come through the program, and they chose me to speak. And Mom was excited. She says, I believe you this time, baby. She says, I know you're gonna do it this time. And she was in North Carolina, and she decided to come to Atlanta to see her baby speak at graduation. Now, I was supposed to speak at the graduation on Tuesday, and Mom came down on Thursday. You know, we all spent time together on Friday, and so she says, "Well, I'm gonna be there Tuesday, to see you speak." And Saturday morning, I got this call from my sister, and she said Mom had a heart attack and she was in the hospital. My brother came and picked me up. We went to the hospital, and sure enough, she was unconscious, and she had all these tubes running out of her, and she wasn't responsive. You know, we all, the family gathered at the hospital. You know, we prayed, and we went out and ate and came back and just kind of stayed by her side. Finally, you know, we all went home, and we were going to come back the next day. We came back that Sunday. There was still no response. Mom had had a heart attack, and she also was suffering from diabetes. And it had gotten real bad on her inner veins below her waist. I was feeling pretty bad, and so I went to a meeting, and in the moment, it was the exact time. You know, I shared what was going on with my mom and how I was feeling, and I really felt that she wasn't gonna, you know, I was just feeling real bad about it, and so I shared how I was feeling, and right after I said, thank you for letting me share, my phone rang, and I saw that with my brother, and I answered the phone. My brother said, "Hey man, she didn't make it. She didn't make it." So I collapsed. You know, a lot of the brothers in the meeting escorted me to another room, and I just cried. And for the next few days, or the next week, I was really mad at myself because I spent so much time in the streets getting high that I could have, you know, if I had just gotten sober early enough, I could have spent more time with my mom before she left. And you know, but the positive side was that Mom left here with a sober son. I went on to remain sober, and I went on to speak at the graduation. They left an empty seat for Mom, and everybody was inspired by the speech. My family showed up, and it was a great night. And so, you know, we was able to move forward and make it through that time. I think that what kept me going was a newfound freedom. You know, there's a promise made in recovery that we would know a new freedom, and when I experienced that, I just think that's what kept me motivated. Even with the death of my mom. Now there was, I will add, because recovery and slips is all a part of the walk. You know, I you know, with my first Mother's Day, I was doing good. I was moving forward. I was working on my bike and working my recovery. I had gotten in school. I went to school for alcohol and drug counseling. I was in school to get an associate degree with that. So I'm moving forward. All the plans are together. I'm recording music. I'm making songs, and I'm doing everything. But still, everything was fine until that first Mother's Day. Now, my first Mother's Day without my mom, I just wasn't ready for it, and which resulted into a relapse. I just I had the support. I just didn't seek it. I think I just let it overwhelm me. And that Mother's Day weekend, I ended up back under the bridge with a crack pipe in my hand. It's funny, everybody in the neighborhood was hurt. Everybody in the neighborhood they were like, you know, BigMouthBen, what you doing? You know, what are you doing, man? No. And then, you know, I tell them what happened, and they were just like, oh, you know, they walk off and just like, let him have his space, you know. This is a good reason. I couldn't imagine living without my mom, you know. So I sat under the bridge, and, you know, I just got high, you know, and finally a friend came along and you know, kind of talked me into leaving, just walking away from it. And I was able to walk away and moved forward. I went back. At this point, I went from Gateway over to Making Away Housing. Making Away Housing is a recovery housing, which you have an apartment and you live on a compound. So I called them and told them I relapsed. You know, I couldn't handle the Mother's Day, and so I went back. And for 30 days, I was monitored, and I was back on track. Everything was fine. And so, you know, I got back into my walk, my newfound freedom, back into the Word, back into the, you know, and this time even stronger because you know, I wasn't ready for that, and I didn't handle it. I didn't work my support system, and I learned from that. So this time I'm back even stronger. You know, I just said I don't think nothing else can come up against me that I would fall prey to. So I'm back and I'm working. We're moving forward, and I think about a year later, sometime later, like I said, a couple years ahead in recovery, minus that slip, you know. I was on social media and I ran back into my college sweetheart, Tanya.
My first introduction back to Ben was through social media. We saw each other on social media, and he gave me a call, and we decided to go out on a date. It was 24 years of us not even seeing each other, talking to each other, not even an email, but in the same area. When I saw his picture in bio on Facebook, I could tell that maybe something had gone on, that he may have had a harder life. And so I read a little of his bio, and I read a little bit about the homelessness and the addiction, and I said, okay, I see. So something happened that took him off course.
We got together and went on our date, and I told her everything about my life in the first 10 minutes of the date. She was excited. She listened to me talking, and she said, you know what? She said, I have to use the restroom. So she got up from the table and went to the back, and I'm thinking, oh God, me and my big mouth. Thought she was going out the back window.
Right. He gave me the full rundown.
But she came back.
I was really surprised. I was surprised not only that he had been through it, I was surprised that he shared so much on the first date. And I respected that. Our paths were not together, but still they were the same. We both went on this journey of being out of our calling for 17 years. Because he went through his homelessness and addiction, it took him 17 years to come out. I went through my issues of trying to find myself and come out of a bad relationship for 17 years. And it was right at that 17 years that we found each other again, and I really believe that God was working on both of us.
Ben asked me to marry he and his wife. And we married him, and we've been tight ever since.
This is actually a book that was a gift to us from my maid of honor. She gave us this book, and this is from our wedding day. As you can see, Mr. and Mrs. Benjamin Graham on August 22nd, 2015. Ben and I, this is great, with Reverend Horn there. Here you can see we have the his and her candles and my lovely dress. It is beautiful. My mother, my daughter, and my cousin, who was my maid of honor, was helping me get dressed. So treasure these pictures. These are wonderful. This is his brother, Romero. This was his best man, which was actually a very proud moment because they had been through so much together. He was very proud to be able to see Ben getting married and making such great steps. My favorite memory would be just finally getting to the point of being able to say I do. Ben and I had known each other so long ago, and for us to reunite again and get to this point, I never thought we'd get to this point. This was huge. It was awesome to be able to marry someone that I love so dearly. So that was definitely my highlight, and enjoying that day with all my family.
Oh wow! I think just the day itself. I think it was just so much. Just the actual realization that it was real. You know, I did a lot of crying that day, and I guess it was just confirmation of that reward of recovery. You know, that You know, I'm at the wedding, but I'm still role playing all the struggle, all the things that I've been through, and I'm like, this moment here, you know, and so the whole day was, you know, I don't know if I had a moment was.
I just like I said, just to being able to finally get to that point to say I do. Yeah. It was magnificent.
I was early getting there, and I got there and they really had good food. But before we ate, I watched all the people gathering in and one helping the other get dressed. And I just sat there and watched, you know, enjoyed myself while they did all they did. And it turned out to be a great wedding.
The family's waiting on the chicken, right?
Right. Those two legs. Two legs and 2 thighs. Tanya has played a very important role. I call Tanya, I like to tell Tanya she's my missing rib. You know, as Adam took that rib and created woman, Tanya was my missing rib. Tanya has encouraged me from the start.
I would say we're best friends, absolutely. I think we're great work partners, absolutely. Are we coming up with some great things? Yes, we are. Are we struggling in some areas of trying to put our vision on paper? Yes, but that's the good part of being able to be with someone who loves you and you love them, and you guys can stop and work together and pull it all together.
She's always been that confident one. She's always believed. You know, and I think a lot of that is my support. You know, she's always believed in me. She's always trusted me, and that puts a lot on me. That doesn't put a lot on me. It's easy to do because I love her. But you know, it keeps me going.
We work well together. We have 2 different personalities that comes together well. We balance each other out. He's still that very outgoing, fast reactive, and great ideas all the time. And I'm that kind of person, even because of the industry that I work on. I'm like, okay, that's a great idea. How are we going to make this happen? Okay, let's stop. Let's put some stuff on paper. Let's plan it out.
I make it my business at least once or twice per week to come in here, you know, just to see how they're doing, just to see how the marriage is going, how their relationship is going. And they always getting along. They always talking with each other. I'll always ask them, everything all right, you know? Y'all doing all right? They doing just fine.
With us being here on Auburn Avenue, we see it every day. And so he was able to even teach me the more insight of what goes on the street, what happens in a person's life who's dealing with addiction, what happens in a person's life that don't have a place to go.
She was always volunteering. She volunteered a lot with Must Ministries, and I think when we got together, she got more of a personal understanding of homelessness and addiction, and it gave it more of a face, my face.
You could read about it all day, you know, but until you get out here and you actually see it, it's different. And so he was able to bring that into my life so that I could get a better understanding and better compassion, more compassion, I should say.
With us opening the store, we see it every day. You know, most of the times during the day, we see people just waking up in the morning, they can barely walk. We see people wanting another hit so bad that they're begging for $1 or begging for $4. And then
when we in the store, it's constant ministry all the time, and then we're doing different outreach events or going out and you know, kind of supporting people as they do their outreach as well.
A lot of times that what happens, a lot of the guys that I see regularly, I will, you know, they help me unload out the car or sweep and stuff like that for a few dollars, and as we build that relationship, then, you know, they know my story as well. So, you know, I say, you know, man, that I can make some phone calls and we can get the ball rolling and you can come off the street. He's next in line. His friend was Johnny. Johnny was his partner, wasn't he?
Yeah.
And Johnny was helping us, and Johnny's done moved forward. This is my next buddy here. Yeah. That's the main thing, is to like people work with us for a minute and we get to know each other, and you just keep planting seeds of encouragement in life. $1.
An analogy is kind of like the Underground Railroad. Like, it's like I've gotten free, and so now I'm going back and we're bringing other people in.
That's what brings us joy. That's what brings me joy, my wife joy. It ain't always easy. There's always sometimes things are out of balance. You've got more need than you've got business, you know.
It has to be a balance there, or you can, before you know it, yourself is depleted. And so we help balance each other out.
We pray a lot too, you know, for a renewal of spirit and things of that sort. It's all so important to remain calm. You know, we did her blood pressure, perfect. What was it?
123 over 77.
123 over 77. I'm 187 over 112. But I'm working on it. So I think I'm gonna add a little cardio to the routine. But either way, we're just gonna continue doing what we're doing.
I think even more important is having people see a couple do it. See a couple do it, because you don't always see that. Especially in our community. You know, it's a lot of broken homes, a lot of people, children are growing up without fathers, you know, and it's just nice to kind of see that you can build something together as a couple, and people see it every day. They see us come in every day and work together, and it's a great thing. We want to be able to expand our nonprofit that we currently work, you know, through the store, you know, giving the free water and the free socks and the clothes. We want to be able to pull that organization into its own separate, thriving organization. We want to make sure that Motivation 4 is a major, major impact here in the city of Atlanta and further on.
What I've noticed that I'm proud of about the store, we've grown, and the store caters to all. From the person sleeping on the sidewalk to a person that traveled all the way from Russia just to visit the King Center or UK. One day I sat in the store and I looked, and at one table there was one of the guys that had come off the street. He had just enough to buy him a bag of chips. He got one of the free waters, and he's sitting down and he's eating his chips and water. Another guy that's you know, kind of hustles on the block, he's sitting there, and then there's tourists from another country. And you got all these, you know, all these people from different elements sitting in the store, everybody enjoying their space. Nobody irritating anyone. It was just a perfect harmony, a spirit of harmony in the store. And it's at that point that I realized the store is anointed. The store, it stands for unity.
I came in, there were people at this table, people over there, people, you know, all three of these tables were filled. You know, he allows people to come in and just get out of the cold. They don't have nowhere else to go. You know, let them sit here at the table.
A lot of people would tell me, now this is how they used to do it. You know, a lot of the elders that would come in, and they said that this is how it was back in the day. I'm happy at what the store has become. A neighborhood community resource. And my goal is to have these BigMouthBen stores in a lot of other communities doing the same thing.
One of the things that I always wanted to do was leave a legacy. Not knowing how impactful the business has become, but just knowing that in the area that we're in, we could make some type of impact.
A lot of people are just wanting me to come out and share with other people that have gone down the same path, that have been mandated through the same program, to show them what doing right looks like a few years down the road. And I love it, you know, I love it. And so I think I'm growing more into that legacy that I want to leave. I want people to realize that life is possible. You know, that there's a lot of potential to life. And I told one kid today that God
blesses us with talents and passions, and it's only when we connect with that and allow that to come out of us that we really experience true happiness. You know what? We've done a lot.
Yeah, this is not even half of it. Like, if we took pictures of all the events and that we've been a part of, we would fill this wall up and that wall up. We would fill up a lot of space. Yes, we did a lot.
Instagram.
So if you ever need proof that the city of Atlanta is a city of second chances, call Mr. Graham, because you just saw an example of it.
I'm able to just, inspire other people to walk the same walk, to enjoy this newfound freedom.
Sounds like you're too busy to go back,
Yeah. I don't know what lies in the end, but I like where I'm going. Right. I like where I'm going.
48 years old, still rap. I used to be strung out on that blow, so I ain't about to trap. Got a store in the hood and that be good enough. Take my profits every day and then I put them up. Dollar saved is a dollar earned. And if you walk around here broke, that mean you never learn. I can try to teach you, but you gotta listen. When it come to life, you better have a mission. Stay down for what you want, don't let it slip away.